What happens when a country believed to hold billions of barrels of untapped oil begins offshore drilling for the first time after decades of instability, and does so with the backing of a foreign state that has steadily expanded its economic and military presence? Somalia is preparing to launch its first offshore drilling campaign as a Turkish-operated vessel moves into position, marking a shift that could redefine energy dynamics in East Africa, without yet determining whether it will succeed or stall. If this effort develops into sustained production, Somalia could transition from a largely untapped frontier into an active participant in global energy markets, altering regional supply patterns and investment flows. If it fails due to technical, political, or security challenges, it may reinforce perceptions of high risk associated with frontier exploration zones. If it proceeds gradually without major discoveries, the result could be a prolonged exploratory phase with limited immediate economic impact, but growing strategic alignment between Somalia and its external partners. The context behind this development is rooted in Somalia's long-standing but unrealized hydrocarbon potential. Geological assessments conducted over several decades have indicated the presence of offshore reserves, with estimates suggesting the possibility of billions of barrels of oil. However, exploration has historically been constrained by prolonged conflict, weak institutional capacity, and limited infrastructure. These factors prevented large-scale investment and delayed the transition from theoretical resource potential to operational activity. The current phase began to take shape through a structured partnership with Turkey. In 2024, the two countries formalized a production-sharing agreement that provided a framework for exploration and potential development. This agreement followed years of expanding bilateral relations, during which Turkey invested in infrastructure, humanitarian assistance, and security cooperation within Somalia. The establishment of a Turkish military base in 2017 signaled a long-term commitment that extended beyond economic engagement. Seismic surveys conducted in 2025 by a Turkish research vessel provided the technical foundation for the next step. These surveys mapped offshore geological formations and identified areas with higher probability of hydrocarbon presence. The transition from survey data to drilling marks a critical threshold, as it moves the process from analysis to physical verification. The arrival of the Turkish Petroleum Corporation's drilling ship, Çağrı, represents the operationalization of this transition. The vessel's deployment is significant not only because it is Turkey's first international deep-water drilling mission, but also because it reflects a broader strategy of extending energy operations beyond domestic and near-regional fields. The drilling campaign will focus on sites identified through prior surveys, targeting deep-water prospects in Somalia's territorial waters in the Arabian Sea. The use of dedicated drilling infrastructure indicates a level of technical preparation aimed at ensuring consistent and controlled exploration. Key actors in this process include Somalia's Petroleum Minister Dahir Çağrı, who has positioned the drilling initiative as a milestone in the country's energy development, and Foreign Minister Ali Omar, who has emphasized the role of Turkey as a long-term partner. On the Turkish side, Energy Minister Alparslan Bayraktar has linked potential discoveries to broader economic benefits for both countries and the surrounding region. These positions reflect aligned interests, with Somalia seeking economic recovery and Turkey seeking strategic and commercial expansion. Recent developments provide measurable indicators of progress. The completion of seismic surveys in 2025 established the geological basis for drilling, while the scheduled arrival of the Çağrı in 2026 marks the beginning of physical exploration. The campaign will test specific offshore blocks, with outcomes dependent on both geological conditions and operational execution. While no confirmed reserves have yet been extracted, the scale of estimated potential underscores the significance of this phase. One possible scenario involves successful discovery of commercially viable oil or gas reserves. In this case, Somalia could attract additional investment, accelerate infrastructure development, and integrate into regional energy networks. Export routes would need to be developed or expanded, potentially linking offshore production to international markets. This outcome would also reinforce Turkey's role as a strategic partner, potentially leading to deeper economic and security ties. A second scenario involves limited or unsuccessful drilling results. Geological uncertainty is inherent in exploratory operations, and the absence of significant findings could delay further investment. In this situation, Somalia would remain in an exploratory phase, with the partnership continuing but without immediate transformation of the energy sector. The financial and strategic implications would then shift toward long-term positioning rather than short-term returns. The geopolitical implications of these scenarios extend beyond Somalia. For East Africa, the emergence of a new offshore producer could alter regional energy dynamics, complementing existing developments in countries such as Mozambique and Tanzania. For external actors, the project highlights the increasing importance of bilateral agreements in securing access to resources in frontier markets. Turkey's involvement demonstrates how energy partnerships can intersect with broader foreign policy objectives, including security cooperation and infrastructure development. At a systemic level, the situation reflects a broader trend in global energy exploration, where previously inaccessible or underdeveloped regions are being integrated into supply networks through targeted investment and technological capability. The balance between opportunity and risk remains a defining feature, with outcomes dependent on both geological success and political stability. What emerges is a convergence of economic ambition, strategic alignment, and technical execution. Somalia's entry into offshore drilling is not an isolated event, but part of a larger pattern in which resource development is closely linked to international partnerships. The effectiveness of this approach will depend on the ability to manage risks while maintaining consistent operational progress. As the drilling campaign begins, key variables to monitor include the results of initial wells, the stability of the operating environment, and the evolution of Somalia's institutional capacity to manage resource development. The interaction between these factors will determine whether the current initiative leads to sustained production or remains an exploratory effort. The underlying question remains unresolved. Can a country with significant untapped resources translate potential into production through external partnerships while maintaining long-term stability and control? The answer will shape not only Somalia's economic trajectory, but also the role of emerging players in the global energy landscape, defining how new sources of supply are developed in an increasingly competitive and interconnected world.